Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Abington School Committee meeting. Tonight is Tuesday, October 13th, 2020, and tonight we will start with the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. For those following along at home, we're actually going to be doing a little something different tonight. Peter is going to start with the report of the Superintendent of Schools.
So I appreciate everybody's patience taking some things out of order. This afternoon, I was talking to Marty Golightly and Lindsay in the health department, and they offered last minute to come up to the meeting tonight and provide a deeper level of information. Although we've been working hand in hand with them, and I'm going to thank them a couple of times tonight because it's been nights and weekends, and they've done quite a bit of work for Abington, keeping Abington safe, and collaborating with us through these last couple of days and weeks, especially. As the committee knows, and as the community knows, and as one would expect, we have had identified cases, positive cases, of COVID-19 in what I'm calling the school community. There's a couple of things that are important to talk about with regard to that. We are not identifying anything about the person in the school community other than the building that the person either attends school or works in. And we're doing that purposefully so that we can be respectful of their privacy. One of the most important reasons to be respectful of people's privacy is because, unfortunately, this can turn into something where people are feeling shamed and shame, and that only gets in the way of what needs to be a very robust and healthy and thoughtful investigatory process around close contacts. All of that work is being done through our main offices, through our nurses' offices, and through the health department. And it's very detailed work, very thoughtful work. I will let Marty and Lindsay talk about it further if it's one of the topics that they would like to touch on tonight. I think it would be good to touch on the process a little bit. We've had a lot of questions in the last couple of weeks since we've had a couple of identified cases. Questions like, what's the difference between the quarantine periods with a positive case? What's the difference between that and someone who's a close contact? And people have asked about the timing of when people are symptomatic, or the time that they get their test and their designation, whether they're positive or not, in terms of how long they're either isolated or quarantine, and there's a difference between the two things, isolation and quarantine. It's important to note that this quarantine process is a rigorous one. We are taking an approach with it that keeps people safe, but it's not the only thing we're doing to keep people safe. So please don't let quarantining signal necessarily that there's any type of crisis, because we also have people wearing masks, we have a cleaning regimen in place, we have social distancing in place, we have hygiene rules in place, and I think one of the things that's probably the best news of all is this cooperation that's occurring with the faculty and the staff and our students. Because our students have done a great job, our staff has done a great job of making sure that the protocols that we talked about before the opening of school are followed. So it's not any one of these things, it's all of these things that keeps the school community the safest. And when I say school community, I mean the faculty, the staff, and the students. And when I say staff and the faculty, I mean everybody from administration to the custodians to the nurses. And then also, though, it's important to note that keeping the school community the safest also keeps the community at large the safest. Because our students go home to visit the community at large every night, and then they come back to visit us. And so through this multiple layered step, this multiple layered process of these different safeguards, we expected that this would happen, and we expect that until this pandemic is over, this is going to happen again, unfortunately. And that's why we need to continue to be vigilant and not let this wear us down or get tired of following the rules or get distracted from following the rules by any way or by anything at all. So I think what might be best is if I could turn it over to Marty and Lindsay, and just as a I know people are going to have perhaps some questions for them, but just as a topical outline for us maybe, just describing the process that we're using, that we're collaborating with you on, to identify, to contact trace, the difference between quarantine and isolation, what you've been living and breathing for the last probably longer than you want to think about. So.
Sir, can everybody hear me?
There's a microphone if you're willing to.
Either way, it's going to be a microphone, not a microphone, doesn't matter.
Do you mind? Because the people on cable wouldn't catch you. Thank you.
No problem.
Just the fact that they're here tonight is just one more piece of evidence. I mean, we were on the phone
How's
this
that?
weekend a lot. And they've been working tirelessly, time away from their families and their lives to keep us all safe, so.
Yeah, so first, thank you to the school administration, the faculty and staff, of all of the quick response to all of our phone calls and emails that come at all hours of the night. The school nurses who are doing a bang-up job of making sure that we have all our contacts. I mean, it's a heartfelt thank you because it makes our job easier when so many people are willing to go above and beyond. So thank you. What I want to talk about is exactly what a close contact is defined as, and then I'll let Lindsay discuss the isolation and quarantine. A close contact is someone who has been within 6 feet for 15 minutes of a known positive case. So if I am within 6 feet of you for more than 15 minutes, I am at close contact. That does not mean that if I go home, my wife is also a close contact. So if I am a close contact, it does not necessarily mean that my family is. Does that make sense?
Yes.
It is just a person, and only the person or student or faculty member who has been within that 6 feet for 15 minutes that is the close contact. I know we've gotten a lot of questions of, well, do I also have to quarantine? And the answer is sometimes no. But remember that each case can and sometimes is unique to that family or to that situation. So when we speak to you, we'll try to solve each individual problem if it's different. And I hope that kind of clears up the difference between close contact and positive case. And the positive cases, the close contacts of a close contact doesn't necessarily mean that they also have to quarantine.
Can I, and Marty, just to,
Sure.
I'm sorry, but in the schoolhouse, the way that we've defined it is that at the elementary level, people that are in the same room together all day long at the elementary level are close contacts.
Through 8th grade, right.
And then at the secondary level, it depends on seating charts and the seat work that they do throughout the day.
Right, and sports teams get there's some other questions that we ask and try to get answered with sports teams and exactly what's going on there. So,
Marty, do you mind if I just, Peter, if you could just clarify, so you said secondary, it's high school.
High school.
High school's that second part, right?
what's that?
Yes,
Okay.
High school.
grade 7 and 8. No, high school.
7 and 8 is considered a classroom just like K
Yep,
through 6,
yep.
right? Okay.
Yeah, through 8th grade.
Just wanted to
Okay.
clarify that, or double check that.
Thank you.
Yep. You want to talk about isolation and quarantine?
Absolutely.
Please.
So one of the questions, I'm Lindsay, right? I'm the public health nurse for the town, for those of you who don't know me and haven't spoken to me. Well, that might change. So the biggest question that we get in our office is, how do I know if I'm positive? How do I know if I'm a close contact? And what is the difference? A positive case has been tested and has a resulted lab value that we can see. That individual is put into isolation. That time period is 10 days from symptom, on average, 10 days from symptom onset, or if they're asymptomatic and they're tested for a multitude of reasons, we count 10 days from the test date. We start the day after because we want to encompass the full 24-hour period. So if you are put into isolation, it is because you have a confirmed test result in our system. Quarantine is 14 days, and that is for those close contacts. The individuals that were within 6 feet for greater than 15 minutes, wearing a mask or not, to the confirmed positive case. We count 14 days starting the day after the last exposure. That, in a school setting, you can have, if you had an exposure on a Tuesday, we start counting Wednesday and it's 14 days. On that 15th day, students can return to the building as long as they have remained asymptomatic. Going back to isolation, your 10 days, we have criteria that we meet when we talk to every single case multiple times throughout this period. Once you are cleared from your isolation period, you are free to go back to school. All of these steps, we're communicating with the school nurses to make sure that we keep the community as a whole safe. Anything to add about that?
Let me just jump in 1 second. And that's one of the reasons why a household personal contact or close contact of a known positive could be in isolation and quarantine. That's why that period can be up to like 25 days. So if you have a sibling who is in school who tested positive, your quarantine doesn't start till that sibling's, technically it's the 11th day. And then they could be out of school for up to 25 days, depending upon symptoms, whether they feel bad or whether they have a fever or whatnot. So that's why that period is so long. So just to clarify that specific thing.
Lindsay, can you hit on something that, or Marty? So is it possible that a confirmed positive case could return to school before the close contacts are allowed to return to school?
That is usually the case.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. So because of the infectious period, which is on average, it ends up being about 12 days because you look back 2 days from when symptoms start and then count forward 10, or the positive test date. Your infectious period is about 12, and then you quarantine for 14 from the exposure. So typically you will have the isolation, the positive case in isolation returns to their usual routine sooner than their close contacts. As Marty said, in a household situation, it is completely different. The household members have to quarantine through the entire isolation period for every positive case and then subsequent positive case, plus their own 14 days. So if
And the clocks can get reset at every other positive case.
So I had sent a letter out, Peter had sent out a letter that our office wrote. I will kind of revise that a little, we'll resend it out with examples. Household contacts spend a significantly longer period of time away from the building because their quarantine period is so much longer. Because for every subsequent positive case, we have to account for the continuous exposure and can't start that 14-day countdown until all of their exposure is done.
Would it be a pain in the neck if I asked you for like a, so if I give you an example of my son tested positive today,
Sure.
what does that mean for me?
So this is what I do. Even though I know how to do the math in my head, every single time I talk to every single contact, Marty can attest to this,
Oh, yeah.
I count out loud every day. So if today is the 13th, my follow-up question to you would be, was your son symptomatic or not?
Yes,
When did symptoms start?
yesterday.
So symptoms starting the 12th, I would count starting today, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. As long as your son had an improvement in symptoms and was fever-free without the use of Tylenol or Motrin for the entire 24-hour period of the 22nd,
he could return to his usual routine on the 23rd. What that means for anyone in the house is starting the 23rd, we count 14 days. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. November 5th would be when the household contacts, the soonest that they could return.
And that would start with the today with his symptoms, right? So from the 13th to November 5th.
Yep. And if another member of your household tested positive within that time frame, we would adjust to include that subsequent isolation period.
So the period would get longer.
So
Okay.
if it was 8 days, we're adding, you add 9 days.
No, I'm
Because
glad I asked. Conceptually, it's hard to grasp.
it's very
I don't think
counterintuitive.
you're better off getting it, but you can return sometimes to normalcy.
So
quicker.
we never hope anyone gets
Of
it.
course not, yeah.
However, in the circumstances where we have a 3-member household and all 3 get it, their life returns back to normal a lot sooner than if they were staggered
Okay,
positive.
thank you for clarifying.
The other huge thing that I want to talk about, and as a mom, as a public health nurse, my biggest thing is I don't want anyone in town to feel put out, to be nervous, anything. There are very specific situations that your son could have been around. Say my daughter was positive. She's not. If she was, would deal with it. If they were close contacts. You're not a close contact. You could continue going to work. Other siblings could continue going to school, could continue going to sports, continue seeing their friends at a socially distant and responsible manner. But your son has to stay home.
Gotcha.
So it's very important to note that just because we think so-and-so is in quarantine, it does not always affect the entire household. We do put one member of a household into quarantine.
That makes sense.
So that's something to be mindful of and be respectful of when we see families out and about, making sure that, Marty and I work real hard with the school district, with the nurses, to make sure that we keep it safe. The last thing I want is anyone feeling bad because are they not doing the right thing or,
Can I,
yeah?
This is real quick about contact tracing itself. Our contact tracing is only as good as the information that we're provided. So I know it can be difficult to remember anyone that you were around for that 6 feet for 15 minutes, but do your best. And if you're unsure, it's safer to give us way more information and let us try to sort it out than to not give us enough. Because we have been getting some of those phone calls. Well, I think I was around them. Well, then I'm always going to recommend getting tested. That's always going to be my recommendation. Get tested as much as humanly possible. But we might not need to put you in quarantine, or we might need to add you to the quarantine list. So just the information you share with us is super important for us to keep track of all of that and to make our judgments be as relative and relevant as possible. And all of our contact tracing, barring a few, logistical things that we just can't handle in-house, is done by me and Lindsay, mostly Lindsay, because that's a point of pride, and it's very important to us that we have that local community touch. If you're getting a phone call, you're getting it from me or you're getting it from Lindsay. So here we are. Call us back. We're decent enough human beings that we like to talk on the phone for long periods of time, and we'll do our level best to make sure that you are safe and you completely understand the expectations of both isolation, quarantine, and what to expect when your family's doing that. And we do have some mechanisms to make it easier for you, or if you need something, we can guide you toward those resources. All right, that's really all.
I have a question.
Sure.
So when you contact a family because a student's been in close contact, are you recommending that they get tested, or it's not required?
We will always recommend that they get tested. Obviously, the first thing we'll recommend is that they contact their family care physician or pediatrician, whatever the case, and then we will recommend testing. I'm always going to recommend testing.
Regardless, even if they're asymptomatic, you're still
Yep, especially if a close contact.
Okay.
So I'm going to step in real quick.
Go for it.
With that, part of my job why I love doing what I'm doing is I love education. I love teaching what I know. It's useless for me to keep it to myself. The reason we ask close contacts of positive cases to get tested is so that we can ensure that if someone who is a close contact is an asymptomatic positive case, that they are not spreading it to their family unknowingly. We can proudly say that we have stopped a lot of further spread by quarantining and recommending testing. Firsthand, we've seen it countless times
Quite a few times.
work, that we've quarantined an individual, they've been tested, and they were asymptomatic and popped positive. And we put them into isolation, we quarantine the rest of the family, and, you know, it works.
But they could have went to soccer practice, and because they got tested, they didn't go. So it's one of those things that it's like we got them out of the stream.
It is important to note, if you are asked to quarantine and you test negative, it doesn't end the quarantine period early.
We get that question a lot too.
It is a full 14-day quarantine for a reason. And the reason is it can take up to 14 days for the virus to take hold, is the easiest way. It's known as the incubation period. It can take that long for the virus to show up. So by quarantining for the whole time that the virus can develop, we ensure that we do our best to ensure we don't have any further community spread.
So one of the things that, some of the feedback that we've gotten is, this is awful. We hate this. This is inconvenient. This is disruptive. This is not normal. That is all true. And I hate this too. We all do. But there's no way that we're going to be able to continue to keep the schools open if we are not vigilant about this. And there is no way that we'll be able to open more than we are now if we don't knock this virus down. And so that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to keep people safe. We're trying to keep ourselves open. We'd like to open more. But we can't do that unless we knock this virus down, and we have to keep people safe first. So.
That's it?
One last thing to add, and then we'll leave you guys. The process of notifying. This is just a very quick but important process. We get notified either by parents, which is awesome. If you test positive and you want to email us and let us know or call us, that is great. If we don't find out directly from family, we will find out through the state reporting system. I get an email, Marty gets an email, and it triggers a little bit of a, whew, okay, what are we doing? We call the contact. If I'm at home, I will call you from my cell phone, and because it's my cell phone, it's gonna be a blocked number. Fair warning, if I'm in the office, it will come from the office phone number. We will both of us will ask a series of questions to determine why you were tested, where the circumstances surrounding it, and we go through the whole thing. If there is school involvement, our next phone call is to the building principals, to Peter, and to the school nurses. We say we have an exposure. We give as minimal information as possible to protect everyone's privacy. The school nurses work with us. They are outstanding. They give us the seating, based on seating charts. We get a list of names, we get contact information, and we go to work. Saturday nights, holidays, it doesn't matter. We got you. I will assure you, the phone call will come from one of us. We will try every number multiple times, and if we can't do that, we will use the email that is on file. Then, and only then, does Peter send out his letter stating that there was an exposure and a case within the district. With 100% certainty, I can say our office notifies everyone prior to the superintendent's letter going out. That was a big question we got over the weekend, and I can't say it enough. You would have heard from us by the time you heard about this exposure, if you were directly related.
I think one of the difficulties was in the two situations that occurred at the high school, there was a group, all of that hard work was done, and then there was another identified person, and so the second batch caused some confusion that people thought maybe they were in the first batch.
That's
Yep.
great.
And it just
Understandably.
It just so happened that the date was the same, but they were two totally different incidences. And, you know, again, out of respect and privacy, and I hope that everyone in the district can understand that if it was you or your family member, we would give you the exact same level of respect and privacy that we're giving the individuals that have experienced positive test results.
And we do have some local clinics that do the testing, that if they have a positive case, they will help us out with notification right away.
Yep,
So-
they'll email us
And
or
in the
call.
very unlikely off chance that you get notified that you're a close contact, or that you get notified that you tested positive and you're unaware of any of that, call us immediately, as we can get into the system and we can look up what's going on and we can help you out and answer some questions. Like I said, we do it all in-house, so if for some reason, if the CTC, because of an out-of-town close contact, had to contact you, give us a call and we can help decipher it or make it a bit more palatable for you.
So just another thing that you had mentioned on the phone to me earlier today that I think would be worth repeating if you guys don't mind is, in terms of the distinctions and the guidelines and the procedures that we're using, they are promulgated from
CDC, Mass Department of Health, and the best science that we know of right now. Because I'm going to end our speech tonight with the way I ended everything I've ever talked about, is tomorrow this could all change if the science dictates that we have to go a different way. But this is the best way we know how to do it now, and we're following current guidelines, we're following current science, we're following current medical best practices as much as we physically can. And it's a lot of research and it's a lot of daily work, but my kids are members of the school district, so it's important.
I personally can't thank you enough, and on behalf of the school system and the kids that we serve and the students and the staff and the faculty, just appreciate all your hard work. I know how much it is because we were talking all the time, weekends and nights, and so.
Our pleasure.
All right.
Thank
Thank you, guys.
Thank you for coming. Excellent information.
Do you want to go into, continue with the presentation about the opening
Mhm.
and the slideshow?
Yeah, that'd be great.
So in order to do the slideshow, committee members may want to take a seat down there,
Okay.
because otherwise we're going to be looking at the, and then if the members of the administrative team, as things come up, wouldn't mind taking their turns at the microphone. Laura, you are chronologically the youngest group of kids, so you knew.
Good evening. It's really nice to see everybody again, even though we are masked. And the mic was set for normal-sized people, and I'm not a normal-sized person, so I will try to stand on my tippy toes so that you guys can all hear me. So I want to tell you just first of all that things at AEP have been going better than we could have ever dreamed. Not just better than expected, better than we could have ever dreamed. So I did put together a slideshow. And I'll just touch point on some of the pictures. It's a very, very short one. I just wanted to give you a sense of what's going on in the building. I'm going to speak to the last slide first before we see anything. I put it last for a reason. You'll understand why. It's arrival and dismissal, and I think that that's the thing that all of us were most worried about, and it's gone swimmingly. The parents are doing well. The students are doing well. The staff is doing well. It is just happening like we've done it for our entire lives. So what you see here is happy students. Happy students. We've got somebody who's working on their counting and fine motor skills. And you'll notice that he's working with items that are on a tray. All those materials are materials that no other student will be touching on that very day. They will be sanitized before another student touches them. Next slide, please. Here we've got a child working with kinesthetic sand, and I don't know if you guys know about it, but it is absolutely the most favorite thing in the world for our kids. And again, that's individualized kinesthetic sand. Pre-COVID, we would have had that in a sand and water table, but now we have individualized bins. And so it's completely safe. We're not transmitting between students. Next slide, please. Yet again, the kinesthetic stand. I had to put it in twice because it is, in fact, that special to our kiddos. Next slide, please. Here we have a student. You can see that she's got a little pencil case next to her. All of those are her individual supplies. That case is hers individually. It has her name on it. So she's got her crayons, she's got her glue stick, she has scissors in there. She has everything that she needs that is personal to her. No other child is accessing it. And you can see that she is working on a tray as well. And those trays are individualized to that student for the entire day, and then they are sanitized in the evening. And so she's busy learning how to write her name. And you'll see that there's a smile in her eyes behind that mask. Next slide, please. Here we have a child that's, again, working with materials that are sanitized nightly. She's working on some early math, geometry kinds of skills, as well as some fine motor practice there. Next slide. And then this is the one I talked about first and hit upon last, and you can see the reason I put this one up last. It's not as happy and smiley as the other pictures because there's no children in it, but this is the way that we are doing arrival and dismissal. Each of those cones there has the staff pictures, so the teacher and the paraprofessionals associated with the classroom, and parents have their socially distanced markings on it. And again, I cannot say how well it's been going. They seem to read one another, vibing one another. They're coming just appropriately. We don't have backups, we don't have lines, and the kids are walking down the halls just as happy as could be. So it's great news. Our kids are getting individualized attention. They're getting a lot of attention. They're learning so much, and it doesn't feel like we're so early in the year. I feel like we know our kids so well. It's been truly a transformative experience for us. So I'm happy to report. Anybody have any questions?
If there are, you can read them at the end so we have the microphone.
Good evening, everybody. It's not call and response tonight. Oh, thank you for the people over on the left. So we do not have a slideshow, but many of the things that Laura just shared visually and orally are true at Beaverbrook as well. As Peter said earlier tonight, we could not be prouder of the students and staff at Beaverbrook Elementary School. We are almost at the 30-day mark from when we started school. However, let's recognize that our hybrid students, that only means they've had about 8 days in school. So we're still, although we've moved on to full academics, we are still in the early phases of the school year. We are still in that get-to-know-you period. As far as our routines and protocols for safety and just operationally in classrooms and around the building, things are in place, as we discussed over the last few months that we've been planning, and we've made a few tweaks here and there. An example is our arrival and dismissal times. Families are doing such a great job with drop-off and pickup that we were able to tighten up our times a little bit to give us more instructional time during the day. This is actually our schedule from a student's perspective if they were in the green cohort. So you see their in-person days are Monday and Tuesday, and then Wednesday, Thursday, Friday is remote. Teachers are teaching, students are learning. And that's what our goal was. Bring everyone back safely, focus on social, emotional, and mental well-being, and get to academics. And so we're proud of all that's happening right now. Some of our biggest challenges have to do with everything that Marty and Lindsay were talking about. when a positive case has been identified and we've had to quarantine staff or students, there's a transition period. It's challenging. It's challenging for the staff. It's challenging for the administration of the building. It's challenging for the students and the families. And so I ask that as we continue forward with all of the positive momentum that we have, as Peter and Marty suggested, we stay vigilant with our safety protocols and we prepare for the eventuality that you might need to quarantine. Your child might need to be learning remotely for a long period of time while we wait out the process. And while that happens, there may be some glitches with technology. There may be some glitches with how is the student going to get their work. We've been working with families to make that happen, but I just ask everyone to follow our safety protocols and continue to be patient with staff and with students as everyone adjusts to the situation we're in. But we are doing a great job, and we continue to teach and learn. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Hi, all. Echoing what Chris and Laura said, we are so happy to have our student body back and our faculty back. I couldn't be prouder of both of those groups. The adjustment period for what we thought our students would need to get used to was shorter than we thought. And we really used those first 3 orientation days to maximize the routines and the procedures that we would ask for both our students and staff. And we felt that when we came in that following Monday to welcome our green cohort for their first day, that was really going to be a day that we could get into things and feel throughout the building like we were in a normal school day. Most of what we're doing in our classrooms and most of what we're seeing feels normal, and it's really great to say that. Our teachers are delivering in-person instruction in a way that feels familiar. We're not able to do small group instruction in the way we used to. We're not able to have intimate student groupings in the way we used to, but that hasn't stopped our teachers from teaching and delivering what they can through the limitations. And we feel that all of that aligns really, really well with most of the adjustments that our kids have had to make. Our students are adjusting and our kids are adjusting. A major shout out goes to our families and our students for the adherence to the health and safety protocols. They almost came in with it being second nature. We felt that our students were able to, for instance, at Woodsdale School, we have one-way and directional hallways and stairwells, and our kids are doing a great job adhering to that. You'll see them walking through the hallways, giving their arm spaces, and we've seen even when they're outside at recess, if they choose to play close, they know that they have to keep their mask on, and that's a personal choice that they would rather keep that mask on and have some fun with the student that's close to them. So I'm happy to hear that they've taken that on themselves, and they've really made us proud with all of the things that they're doing, with their hand washing, even just walking through the hallways as I'm traveling through the classrooms and I'm noticing that there's a couple of students outside the bathrooms. And I asked them, what are they doing? Are you guys hanging out outside the bathroom because there are other people in there? And they are doing so. So they are self-monitoring even their own bathroom usage. So again, we have a lot to be proud of. In addition to some academic learning and health and safety protocols that we're happy to see in place, I feel that our team's done a really good job of getting to know the students. Even though we have some distance and some masks between us, one of the things that we thought we did really well at the Woodsdale School prior to our closure in the spring was developing a sense of community and knowing that each of our students was well known through the student body and through our staff. And I'm happy to say that that's continued. Our teachers, we're not going to let things like distance and the inability to get together on the rugs stop them from developing a positive climate and community in their classroom. We're utilizing Second Step to help a little bit with that as well. So we have a social work intern and my school psychologist who's been wonderful getting the Second Step programming out to our classrooms. The students have been talking about things like using self-talk. How do I advocate for myself? How do I be assertive with a strong and loud voice to make what I need or what I want to say come across even through the mask? How can I be a respectful learner? And how can I listen with attention? These are just some of the modules that we've covered already within the second step curriculum. So again, I'm really proud of the work that our staff and our students are doing. And one more group that I want to make sure knows, that everyone knows has stepped up in a big way is our paraprofessionals and our support staff. So each morning and each afternoon, they're meeting with students, checking in with them, ensuring that they know the concepts that they're supposed to be working on independently or can understand the assignments that the teachers have given them. Once that morning or afternoon check-in happens, they're also working in their classrooms and supporting students in much of the ways that they had in the past. So everyone, in my opinion, at the Woodsdale School has really stepped up, and they've done a wonderful job, and I'm really, really proud of them. Thank you.
Good evening. Wanted to give a quick update as to how things are going at Abington Middle School, and it's going to be a lot of echoing what the principals before me have shared. I'm happy to report that while we've made some adjustments to mass breaks and lunch seating, much of what we had planned for and anticipated has been running smoothly. Students are able to be in class before the first bell. They're able to participate in full days of instruction and be able to be dismissed without an extended arrival or dismissal period. As Chris said, teachers are teaching and students are learning, and that was the goal we had coming into this. And as Jonathan said, we have a lot to be proud of, and I don't think I could say it any better than that. Extremely proud of our students. They're adhering to the mask rules, they're adhering to social distancing in the hallways and in the classrooms, in the bathrooms, and they're paying close attention to the assigned seating, which becomes important if we have to do contact tracing. As you can see in our schedule, the one that's up is a 5 and 6 sample schedule. I believe the next slide should have a 7 and 8 sample schedule. Maybe? Yes. So we have built our mass breaks into the 7 and 8 sample schedule. So this one is just changed just last week. So in between 2 and 3, you would see a mass break, and in between 6 and 7, you'd see a mass break. And the purpose of doing that was to make sure that the mass break minutes are not impactful on individual periods, and that every period of instruction is given the time that it needs. Our class sizes on both green and wave days do not range outside of the size that we're able to fit our students in, while still remaining with 6-foot distancing. And our routines are settling in. It feels like a school, which is important. A lot of the worry this year coming in is, what is this going to feel like? What's it going to look like? We heard that not only from parents, but from teachers, and we had those questions ourselves. So at this point in the school year, to be able to sit here in front of you or stand here in front of you and tell you that Abington Middle School, it feels and runs and looks like a middle school. I'm proud of that. I'm proud of the work that our staff and our students have put into making that happen. Lastly, I'm happy to say that, as you know from many conversations we've had in the past, student leadership is important to us. And I'm happy to tell you that we will soon be starting our student council up. It'll look and feel a little bit different, but the student council is important for any middle school and any school that leads into a good high school or college experience. So I'm very happy that we'll be starting those opportunities up for our students again. Thank you.
Good evening. I'd like to echo very similar sentiments as my colleagues have in their buildings at Abington High School. If we could, we have our schedule up there, fantastic. So I would say that our schedule with the longer blocks of instruction, we're an adaptation for our staff and our students, but I'm happy to report that adaptation is setting in, and people are growing more and more comfortable with that structure of learning as we've gone on through our several rotations. We are able to provide mass breaks in each of these long blocks, with the exception of lunch, where the mass break happens at lunch. Circumstantially, that mass break coincides with a natural break or pause during those periods to give a moment of rest for students to literally stretch their legs and arms and give them a little bit of fresh air when they can in between those long blocks of learning. After some feedback from staff and with positive input from students, we split the bridge block into 2 different periods. So that 80-minute intervention block has been split, or a 90-minute intervention block has been split. So students have the opportunity to catch up with up to 2 of their teachers during that time to just catch up on any support needed or intervention needed before they are home or coming off of their remote days. As it took some adjustment to get used to these longer blocks of instruction, it also took some time for the remote student work piece to pick up as well. I would say that based on the students I've spoken to and some of the parent feedback I've gotten, the students who are home on their non-in-person days, their remote days, are reporting that they have a substantial amount of meaningful work to do. In some cases, kids are saying, boy, it's a lot of work to do. And we are obviously trying to hit the Goldilocks zone of getting just the right balance where students have enough to do without feeling overwhelmed or completely bored. I will say, very similar to my colleagues, how enriching it is to be at a building that feels like high school. I think we really settled into our pattern. The faculty have done a fantastic job of working their magic and building relationships with students. One of our great concerns when we last met in late August, early September, was the fear of going remote without having relationships with our kids. Every single day we meet them, we further build and cement those relationships, but I'm happy to say I feel like we're at a place where we have really solid relationships with our students in our classes. The last piece I need to say, and this was not something I was certain about when I last met you, is how the students would do. They have simply been outstanding at following all the new rules and new expectations. They have been amazing and really blown us away with how cooperative and understanding they've been. They were the X factor, and they have absolutely outshined every single expectation we have. They get it, they understand, they're in, they're doing their work, and as my colleague said, under this circumstance, Abington High School is working as well as it can be. Very proud of the work our staff and students have done. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. Good evening. Tonight, I'm going to give you an update on the K through 6 Virtual Academy and then the 7 through 12 TECA Virtual Academy. And you're going to see that whether our students are hybrid or fully remote, there's a lot of positives, and our students are fully learning and fully engaged no matter what environment that they're working in. Our K through 6 Virtual Academy consists of 1 remote teacher per grade level. We currently have a total of 179 students enrolled in our Abington Public Schools Virtual Academy grades K through 6. Although remote, our virtual academies are full-day schedules of learning. In the next 3 slides, I'll go over a sample schedule for each building. Although they're sample schedules, the individual virtual academy teachers might have slight differences in their schedules because of the different grade levels. At Beaverbrook, grades K through 2, our virtual academy students begin each morning with a whole group morning meeting to set the day. After morning meeting, they segue into an academic learning block, followed by the same curriculum as the hybrid students, such as literacy or reading. These academic blocks consist of live whole group or small group sessions of instruction, and in addition, we'll have some independent work. The independent work that you'll see on the next few slides consists of various subjects that include things like independent reading, practice work in phonics, writing, grammar, For math, it can involve whole group or small group sessions for instruction with independent work with such things as IXL Math or ST Math, practice and extended problems. These are our supplemental online math practice problems. Our social studies and science may also include independent reading, virtual activities and labs, and projects. After the first academic block in the morning, the students break for lunch and have a movement break. Then after lunch, they'll have another academic block, and in this example, you see math, which consists of both live and small group sessions along with independent work. The end of the day consists of a check-in with the whole class for a closing meeting. The remote Wednesday has a morning and afternoon check-in, and the majority of the work done on Wednesdays is done independently. Woodsdale has a very similar model as Beaverbrook, in that the day starts with a morning meeting to get the students ready for their virtual learning day, and they meet with the teacher. Each block is very similar to Beaverbrook in that they're both live sessions mixed with independent work in small group. The first block is independent work in science and social studies, followed by another academic block in math. There's independent follow-up work before lunch and movement breaks, and then the afternoon starts with another academic block. The day closes again with the teacher and a closing meeting and with some office hours. The remote day on Wednesday also looks similar to Beaverbrook with a check-in in the morning and much independent work. For our middle school grades 5 and 6, students start with their live check-in for homeroom, followed by 2 academic blocks such as math or literacy. They break for lunch and do some independent work, have a movement break, which then they segue into an academic block after lunch in science or social studies. The remote Wednesday has a morning check-in, and the majority of the work is done independently. And I just want to say thank you to our virtual academy teachers for taking on this new learning environment for our remote students. Okay, so that's our K through 6, and then I'm going to move on to our 7 through 12 TECA Virtual Academy. And TECA stands for Tech Connections Academy, which is a Commonwealth virtual school in the state of Massachusetts. And this is a little bit different than our K through 6 virtual academy. So currently we have a total of 77 students that are enrolled in TECA, grades 7 through 12. We have 39 at the middle school and 38 at the high school. This year we had a quick turnaround to enroll students in TECA for grades 7 through 12. And even though some families opted for full remote, they still are our Abington kids. Abington Public Schools enrolled all students on September 11th, and many students began on time on the September 16th. However, some were still getting their classes. We noticed a problem with the enrollment, so we asked TECA to do an audit, which was done over the next consecutive 4 business days. By September 22nd, the students had their courses. In terms of technology, the TECA helpline was not always available or had long wait times, and this led to some confusion on how to fix some issues with TECA, but they were able to fix them. I want to say thanks to James and his staff because IEPs and 504s were added with additional supports for our high-needs students. And also a special thank you to our principals, Mr. McCurtain and Mr. Bourne, along with the guidance staff and support staff for their quick enrollment turnaround that we did at both the middle school and high school. And thank you also for parents for your patience, as this was a new model that we were doing. So in a nutshell, a lot of the Massachusetts schools chose to go to a remote program such as TECA, and the challenge was that they took on a lot of students from many, many districts all over the state of Massachusetts all at once. They only had a certain number of staff that they had at TECA to work with, which may have caused some glitches that we have seen, but they were all eventually ironed out. However, this was the best direction for our students because of the available programs and the courses that they offered. We're not able to offer this many courses internally for all of our students. Thank you.
Thank you. So I do have one request of the committee tonight, but before I got to that, I just wanted to give a brief update on where we stood with athletics. So we're a couple weeks in with our traditional fall sports, which includes soccer, cross country, and golf. So all of those teams have played a match, ran a race, or played a game, which is very exciting. Our kids have been outstanding. As all the principals echoed earlier. It's a lot to ask a kid who has played a sport one way their entire life to all of a sudden learn new rules, wear a mask, and keep their distance, where usually these are times where kids get together and enjoy their company and some traditions, high fives, things like that. Our kids have been fantastic in adapting and also still doing the things that they usually do within the sport and coming up with creative ways to do them a little bit different. So a big credit to the kids first and foremost, but also our coaches have been outstanding. Our athletic trainer, Ms. Reed, has been instrumental in allowing us to adhere to all the safety protocols and so forth. And our administration has been very supportive, and the parents. We had our first batch of games this weekend, some home, some away. And as some of you know, it's very different going to a game. You have to register online in advance. We have to cap the number of people to meet all of the requirements from the various agencies. And it's been going very smooth. Compared to what I'm hearing in other towns, it's just another time that I realize how fortunate I am to work in the community of Abington and have not only the students, but the families that we have in town. I know it's very difficult to not be able to go to away games, but our parents have been understanding. And then also at home games, you might have a family of 5 that you want to bring, and you have to pick who comes and who doesn't get to come. So it's not lost on us, the challenges with that, but we appreciate it very much. The next batch of sports, which are going to start up this week, are the sports that are usually played in the fall, but this year are not for various reasons. And we hope to start those programs, some of them hopefully tomorrow, if the weather's a little bit better. And that's volleyball, football, cheerleading, and a strength and conditioning program. So this week we anticipate having about another 75 kids start to do something. In all of these sports, they'll just be competing in Abington with the high school kids in groups of no more than 25. So our football group, for example, might be split into as many as 3 different groups. And they won't interact with each other, and that's just to adhere to the current guidelines. And hopefully later in the spring, we'll be able to play those in a more traditional way where we compete with other towns. The cable company has been great in filming games. We're trying to work with other towns for away games that are filmed to get them on our cable. Again, this is another example of where Abington is so great. Our cable company is outstanding. They're turning games around the next day. Other towns aren't as on top of things in terms of getting things filmed. We're working with them. There is an effort being made. Some towns don't film. Others film, but they said we can't get it to you for a week. But know that that effort is being made where it can to get the away game films for our families to watch, but also to get up on local cable. The final piece is the request for this group. If you remember last year, you voted to have an individual cap for the user fee of $500. So it's $175 per sport. So that meant the third sport was $150, so you saved $25. This year, because of the unique circumstances, there's an opportunity to play 4 sports. So after some feedback from various community members, the thinking was that that 4th sport should essentially be free. So my recommendation and request is that you maintain the current individual cap of $500. So the first 2 sports would be the full $175. The third sport would be the $150. And if they play a 4th sport, that 4th sport would have no user fee attached to it.
So basically, Peter, that's because of the 4th season, it carries over the philosophy that we had before, and gives people a reduction that they need.
Correct, yeah, the idea of playing 4 sports is unique, and we didn't want the cost to be a deterrent for them to do that. And we didn't want the fact that there was a unique circumstance where a kid maybe plays sports year-round, now that it was split into 4 seasons instead of 3. We didn't want them to feel that they had to sit home for a couple months because of financial considerations.
So would the request of the committee be that the family cap that we currently have in place be applied to the 4th sport?
So the individual cap.
The individual cap.
The individual cap of 500 previously included the 3 sports, so it would be to include the 4th sport in that cap.
Alicia, I'm just going to ask you, from budget-wise, does it affect anything drastically?
It doesn't, because the 4th sport is a sport that we were going to have anyways.
Okay.
It's a change in season.
Okay. Yep. Makes sense.
So what had happened is that some students participated in a fall sport that they wouldn't otherwise have because they would have been playing, for example, football or volleyball.
Thanks.
So it provides more opportunities.
So if somebody's playing soccer and if volleyball starts off but soccer's still going, can they play 2 sports at the same time?
So not at the same time. So right now, the volleyball that's starting this week is club volleyball.
Oh,
So
I
it's
see.
not considered an interscholastic sport. So if the timing works, there could be somebody who could potentially be on the soccer team and play volleyball, but the traditional fall sport that's competing interscholastically with other schools, that always has to take precedent. But if, for example, there's no soccer practice and they wanted to, and they signed up and went through everything, in theory they could. But they can play soccer now and then play volleyball interscholastically in March and April.
I see.
And I do anticipate that happening I'd say, talking with kids, probably up to maybe a dozen kids, it's possible. But we're not talking like hundreds of kids that were going to be impacted.
Great, thank you. Any other questions? So then it looks like we're looking for a motion to approve $500 for 4 sports, the 4th sport free.
I'll make the motion. I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Awesome. Thank you, Peter.
Thank you.
So at this point, I want to turn it right back over to the committee for questions. I just want to say that you heard a lot of good news, but I think we all realize that this is not the model we all want. We all want kids in person. And people are working hard, and we have been successful, and kids are learning, and it's exactly what we want. And we went through some growing pains in the first couple weeks of school. And I really want to highlight this for people. You know, we have 2,000 different students who are individuals who are learning through a different type of model than we've ever rolled out before. And we have several hundred different teachers teaching in that model. And so I am certain that there remains some households and some families who could use some support, or we could look to make individual adjustments in how things are going for those students, but we need to know specifically what those circumstances are and what's going on in those homes in order to best do that. I like the phrase that Jonathan Bourne used about Goldilocks. What was, we're looking for that perfect Goldilocks moment or that perfect fit for everybody. But everybody has a different feel as an individual for these experiences. So an hour of work for one student, regardless of the grade, could be 2 hours for another and 10 minutes for another. And so we need to have those specific discussions with teachers and kids and families so that we can best serve them. And that holds true when we're not remote, by the way. That is a part of what happens in a schoolhouse. But when we see all the kids every day, it's easier to adjust. We just need good communication so that we can adjust as best we can under the current model. So I just wanted to say that because it's just acknowledging the circumstance that we're all in. And the other thing I want to say, and I promise I'll stop, I'll turn it over to you guys for questions or for whatever direction the community would like to go in. I was on a conference call today with the other superintendents in the South Shore. We are not alone. Everybody on that call was experiencing the handful of positive cases that we've experienced. And everyone on that call has reacted exactly the same way that we are. I know people do a lot of comparison shopping on social media with a lot of things, and that's great. It's people people communicate quite a bit, but it's hard to really get a sense. If you think your neighbors have all of those happy times with all those pictures they're publishing all the time on social media, you're wrong. It's really not how it is all the time. I can tell you in other communities, they are having the exact same experience as we are with incidents of COVID. And, I'm gonna track it every week, every day. I talk to Marty and Lindsay. The DPH has published a dashboard, and we went from green to yellow. And every Wednesday that's updated, so it's going to be updated tomorrow. And so we'll be checking that tomorrow and having more communications with Marty and Lindsay about the trajectory of this virus. And so that is really the last thing I want to mention to people in terms of just reporting out sort of a State of the Union address for the Abington Public Schools as of, I think we're on day 19-ish of education for the 2021 school year. So I'll turn it back over to the committee for whatever direction you'd like to go in, questions or whatever else.
I have a question, I guess, kind of based on what you were saying. I guess it's really great to hear from all the administrators on how well everything's going. There's so many positives, which I was happy to hear, and I feel like that's the general consensus. But I know Jonathan Borden said he was able to talk to some students and get some feedback from, some students and faculty about how they think things are going. And I know as administrators and teachers and everyone has a feel of how they think it's going. But how are we finding out, besides maybe people are sending emails individually to teachers, but how are we finding out how families think it's going, kind of based on what you were saying, and how students think it's going, maybe at the high school level, how do they feel the coursework is it they might feel like they're getting overloaded or not enough? I know I've heard a lot from different families that some kids are saying they're done in an hour and it's so easy, and then other families are saying I've got so much work. So how are we evaluating that based on, I know it's individual from each school and each grade and, each levels, I guess. So how are we getting feedback from the community?
One of the things that's coming up is the progress report period and conferences. And so there'll be data drawn from that. I'm certain there are students with some time management issues.
Right.
And I'm certain there are students that, could use more work. And I'm certain there are students that are overwhelmed. And so hopefully through the progress report, those communications, we can better triangulate on exactly what the problem is in terms of, and communicate with the students, communicate with the parents. But I can't urge people strongly enough. If you feel your student is waking up, signing in, and then sleeping for the rest of the day, or they're on Xbox all day long, and they're not catching up at some point with their work, please reach out
Right.
and let people know. Because we had to build the system so that it could accommodate people's schedules also in different households that had different numbers of devices, households that had people going in different directions. So the work that a high school student has, although there are different check-in times or our students have, they're able to do it, not just, I mean, if they want to go do something else other than the regular school hours, there's a way for them to get around that by catching up on the work. But at some point, they should be catching up on that work.
Right. So just really like encouraging families and students to be in contact with their teachers if they're feeling the workload is too much, too little. There's no like formal process that we're doing as a district, like a survey, or not that we want any more surveys, but you know, if there's anything that we're doing, like it's more of the families and the students to reach out back if they're having issues.
I just think
and maybe
that-
check-ins from
yeah.
teachers with students while they're in person or not. Or
Not that I wouldn't do a survey, I could absolutely do a survey, and it's easy to do. But the most important thing is to be checking those progress reports and those
Right.
grades and finding out actually what's going on for that individual. Because even the feeling that you have isn't as valuable as the assessment for what you know or are able to do based on the tests and the quizzes and the homework you're doing. I mean, that really demonstrates how much somebody's progressing. Rather than just, I mean, we can do a survey, but I really think, how are they doing academically? What's the level of work? How are they performing in those assessments? Are those assessments challenging and rigorous?
and then the conferences will be coming up,
Conferences.
so we're still doing that at all
That-
grades and school levels, okay.
Yeah, unfortunately, we're not able to do in-person conferences, and while I was on the meeting call this morning with the surrounding districts, nobody's able to do in-person conferences. They're all being done virtually across the South Shore. But that's really again, we're day 19, so if there's a problem, we want to know soon, we want to know now, we want to know yesterday, so that those things can be addressed.
Okay, thanks.
And again, I mean, we could do a survey. I see a better indicator in terms of grades and assessments and what they're actually, the products that they're creating as a result of the instruction. So.
I just have a comment on that. Where you mentioned that it's so important for families to be checking the grades. Is there an expectation for teachers for how often they should be putting the grades in?
I know that I think we're probably talking at the secondary level right now.
Yes.
So maybe, I don't know if Matt and Jonathan could talk about Canvas and Aspen and how we're going to be communicating grades to people. Do you mind? Would one of you mind? You'll do a better job of it than I would. You're the people having those conversations.
Hi, so thank you for that question. At the high school, there's kind of a few ways to check grades. I'd say the first best place for a parent to go to is to their student's Aspen portal, and that gives you the 30,000-foot view of their overall performance in classes. Teachers at the high school had been and have continued to develop their Canvas pages with a great deal of sophistication. So if you look at a grade and you're concerned or curious as to why it is, if you go to the student's Canvas page, it breaks that grade down to the much more detailed level, even assignment by assignment, how many points awarded. If you look at that material and you still have questions about your student's progress, the next best step is to email that teacher and just ask, why did so-and-so get this grade on this assignment? and that's the best way to do it. So it goes Aspen, Canvas, and then the teacher.
So for any parents who have been wondering, I guess the question would be, so there are multiple places to look. Aspen next to is where you're going to get all of the grades in the same place. Is it weekly that the grades are being put in?
I've asked for every 2 weeks.
Okay.
I will say to the community, we're in a new place, obviously, just because of what we're managing with the structure to do some different styles of learning. So exactly, and assessment. So, you know, if you're ever puzzled by anything, the best bet is to reach out to the teacher who can help walk you through that. Does that help?
Yeah, thank you. I
Thanks.
just wanted to let parents know.
I'm just going to echo the same thing Jonathan said. The expectation is that any grade that leads to a final grade should be housed on Aspen at this point. Abington hopefully will be part of a group that is working with the two companies to get the Canvas and Aspen to communicate and import grades directly. That's not happening at the moment, so we do have teachers that are importing grades from Canvas to Aspen, so it's taking a little bit more time with the grading happening on Canvas than it usually does. But all of our official transcript grades, everything should be housed right on Aspen.
Great, thank you.
Welcome.
Just a tough dance between giving teachers time to get everything graded and to be patient with them, and also to be supportive of the parents at home so that they can keep track of their kids. Thank you.
And we're in a critical time because we're at day 19. If there's a problem, you want to get to it now. You want to get to it yesterday. And at the same time, you want to allow time so that you can really so you can get some good data on what that problem might be. Are they not working hard enough? And if so, you don't want them to get behind. Are they over their heads and need more help? That's a different solution than just not working hard enough and having trouble with time management. Is there a need for differentiation of the instruction to the extent possible that could be perhaps more challenging for some students or less challenging for others? Maybe in terms of workload, not in terms of the information. And again, those things are easier to do when you see everybody every day in a school year, and we need some more help with parents to get to the bottom of those individual problems to fix them.
Great, thank you.
Wendy, do you mind if I hit on a couple things?
Of course.
All right, it's not so much questions, maybe for you, Peter, in the end. So I just want to thank everybody for the update, and something I had written down, Dr. Basta, Ms. Thompson, thank you for taking the time to adjust the arrival, the dismissal, as it was happening. You didn't wait. You got to the first couple weeks, you realized there's something you could do, and you got more in-person learning for the kids at that time. Peter, I think the question I have is more for you, and I don't know if this is the right time for it, but I can't find a better time on here, and maybe it's not even tonight. So with the schedules the way they are, and this reflects tomorrow, and I know tomorrow's quick, but even going forward, so professional days. I want to commend everybody for making them be on Wednesdays only, first of all. However, so I know the answer, but I don't know if everybody knows the answer. So the expectation for student workload tomorrow and for other half-day professional days would be what?
They're going to continue with a full day of work.
So I'm open for, and this doesn't have to be a today thing or for tomorrow, but I'm unsure if that's the best way to handle when, in theory, staff won't be available for support during the afternoon hours at those times. If we were in a full thing, those days would be half days for students as well.
So I don't know if any of the administrators have different nuances at the different levels in terms of how that's going to roll out tomorrow that want to, and if you don't, that's fine. Okay. So that's the answer, and then that's something we can look at in terms of the amount of work that goes on a half day and things like that, and the amount of support and balance compared to the amount of support that's available. We can take a look at those things.
Okay, thanks.
Yep. I want to make sure I got it right, guys. I guess I did.
Wendy, that was it.
Great. Peter, would you like to keep going with the budget memo?
Sure. On I'm going to hand it over to Felicia.
So thank you. On Monday night, there'll be a special town meeting. There's a number of items on the agenda, one of which is an additional $416,000 for the school department based on an increase in Chapter 70 funding to the town. We spoke about this, I believe, at our last school committee meeting. There are a number of items that we'll be looking to fund with this additional funding, such as additional ELL support, a part-time floating nurse, expenses relative to the secondary virtual school, additional daily substitutes, hall, lunch, recess, bathroom monitors, certified nursing assistants to assist in the medical waiting rooms, long-term substitutes for teachers that are accessing FMLA and EFMLEA, decrease in bus fee collection, increase for school bus and van disinfection, and increases in special education transportation costs. I'll also note that we have submitted to Plymouth County for reimbursement expenses relative to the opening of school and COVID-related expenses through December 31st. And at that time, the federal CARES grant money will no longer be available. So for some of these expenses, for example, we have submitted to Plymouth County for the first half of the year, and then we'll have the second half of the year expenses. Are there any questions?
So at the special town meeting on Monday, if this is passed, then this money becomes available to us, and then we'll go forth in, like, some of the staffing requests we're looking for, then we'll go forth and look for people to fill these positions. So as long as we get the funding passed, then all these things will be fulfilled. That's the goal.
Correct, and some of these have already been anticipating Plymouth County till December 31st. So there's been a number of ads recently or since school started, temporary COVID-related positions, and some of those, for example, the additional hall and lunch monitors, the certified nurse assistants, for example, the floating nurse. So should this funding come available, those positions will be extended through the remainder of the year.
Okay.
Great,
Thank you.
Good news.
Right?
Yep.
Really good news.
And this will increase our budget by that much.
Okay.
So it'll become part of the school department operating budget for FY '21.
Great. If I could, town moderator has indicated that, he'd like to obviously start by 7. The committee will have a section so that we can deliberate if we need to during that meeting. Obviously all of the social distancing and protocols will be in place.
Thank you for that. And next on this part of the agenda is the 2020-2021 additional homeschool requests. So I'd be looking for a motion to approve the recommended home education programs for the 2020-2021 school year as recommended by Dr. Robbins.
I'll make a motion to approve them.
Okay, I'll second it. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Why don't we save the approval of minutes to like one of the last things and just go back up to the 2020-2021 school committee subcommittees list. That was in your packet. It's actually incorrect, but I think you were emailed the correct one. Oh, okay. And everyone should have a hard copy on their desk. So that's just for informational purposes. And I'm sure the schools, when they have school council, if they have school council, they'll be notifying us. And so, and then any of the other subcommittees will get information from Peter and Felicia as to when we should connect with them. Okay. So next on the list is just a short discussion about spring 2021 MCAS. I think that we just wanted to let people know that at this point, they're going to be having, DESE has stated that they're going to have MCAS. And so we just wanted to make parents aware and just aware that we are looking to, I don't know even how to say the warning, but I know that there's a few of us that actually don't approve of MCAS for our students this year due to the circumstances that's happening and with COVID. So I think at this point, we're just waiting for more information, and then we're going to try and see if we can get pushback from other school committees and superintendents, teachers. Anybody? Yeah, please.
So just to echo what you're saying, I think you were polite about how you said it. I think there's a lot of people, anybody that cares about kids probably wants to not do the MCAS this year. Or at least reduce the amount of testing that's occurring. Maybe not get rid of all of it, but at least reduce it, because if we only see them in Massachusetts, most systems are following the same type of schedule we are. 80% of Massachusetts is doing what we're doing, and the other 20% are probably fully remote. I don't know of anybody that's full in person in Massachusetts. And on these schedules, when we only see the kids such a limited amount of time, we're going to have to take so much time off for testing to be able to do this test. And it's just, it'd be an awful, awful way to spend a childhood, spending 2 months coming to school, taking a test for a good portion of the day. So I know there's a lot of pushback to it. I'm already hearing about it, and so it is currently scheduled to occur, but the latest that I've heard is that we should wait and see a little bit longer to see how things develop, not only with DESE but also with MASS, the Massachusetts Association of School Superintendents, is talking about pushing back, and I know that I'm guessing, but I don't know for sure, that MASC, the Massachusetts Association of School Committees, your professional organization, I would bet you, are also going to be doing some pushing, so we can keep everybody informed.
Peter, when do we stop preparing students for MCAS? It's typically like after the holiday break, or is it a little more into the spring?
I think it depends on the grade level. The high school is the first one because of the competency determination requirement, and it just, I guess the answer is we're always almost doing that, but then it certainly ramps up tremendously. Mr. Bourne, when would you say it tremendously ramps up? And you could just shout it out and I'll repeat it.
Yeah, I think you're actually right. The English builds all year. Like 9th grade, 10th grade, it'll teach you the test of very concept of the skills that kids need to show on a test for DLA. And the math curriculum right now is trying to get as much content covered in preparation for the exams.
So in terms of content areas, we're always doing that.
Right. But that's the trick of the exam, is sometimes the exposure to the content is as valuable as the prep in and of itself. If that makes sense.
So would there be if there was pushback, is there a certain, I know it's not set in stone, but is there a timeline that we would know this by, or it's still?
One of the things I've heard that I'm a little cautious to repeat, because I'm not sure that it's true, so much has become political these days, is that we should wait and see how the election turns out.
Oh.
That that may have some bearing on it. That's what I heard through my professional organization, MASS. And I am not taking sides. I'm not promoting one side over another. I'm not saying vote one way or another based on what I just said. What I'm saying is what I heard from the Massachusetts Association of School Superintendents and the Executive Committee was that DESE was talking about, this is a federal mandate for states. Mm-hmm. And DESE makes mistakes, but so does the federal government. And so that may have a bearing here.
Okay.
So.
Thank you for that information. And So let's go back then to page 1, and we are going to start with the reading and approval of the minutes. And that would be the July 29th, 2020 minutes. So after you look it over, if I can get a motion to approve. And- okay.
I'll make a motion to approve July 29th minutes.
I'll second it. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, then the next is to approve the minutes from August 26th, 2020. And this was an executive session and, it's just an executive session. Okay, can I have a,
I'll make a motion.
Okay, I'll second it. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, then the August 31st, 2020 minutes.
God, there's a lot of minutes. It's been a while.
So once
been
the
busy.
MOA was approved, all of these
Right.
are become part of this, and so, yeah, we were busy. It was a busy summer.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And the last is the, yes, the last is the September 10th, 2020 minutes. And I'll make a motion to approve.
Wendy, do we got to do them separately? Do we got to do the executive session and the regular separate?
Yeah, actually, we do. So for the, that's just for this one right here, September 10th. So do you want to, I'll make a motion to approve the executive session minutes for September 10th. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thanks for that, Chris, too, by the way.
I just saw them together. I'm like, what's going on? There's a lot of papers.
And so next, we have the September 10th regular school committee minutes. Would anyone like to?
I'll make a motion.
Great, thank you. And do I have a second?
I'll second.
And all in favor?
Aye.
Perfect, thank you. Okay. All right, so next on the list, it says new business and establishing of the next school committee meeting. Should we go back to our regular date and time, or would you like to hold off on that still to see what's happening?
I think I looked, it's like 6 weeks out. That might be too long.
I think our next.
Or it's either like in 2 weeks or next week or 6
Right.
weeks out.
So first, interested in what the committee is feeling, but we have this one, then we have a town meeting, and then we basically have a, just two, it would be the week after that, we'd have a school committee meeting. I don't know that I'd have a lot for consideration.
Okay.
If you wanted to have a meeting sooner because we missed something, we could always call one, or we could try to go back into the regular schedule starting in November.
The November meeting would be the Tuesday before or after Thanksgiving?
I'll need help with that one. I gotta look.
I was looking at it the other day and I forgot, what's 6 weeks from now?
I think I put them on my phone.
I guess Teresa, I was going to ask, and Wendy and Teresa, if we don't get back on that schedule, if we can take that sheet down from the website, because I had questions asked.
I talked to Eileen Walsh today about that.
Okay.
Yes, I told her, I would let her know after tonight.
So, I mean, we could always do one sooner as needed, and then the next one would be
The 20.
if we don't do the one in 2
Be
weeks
the
in October, it would be the
24th. That's the
24th of
Tuesday
October, of
next, yeah.
November, sorry.
Then the other one was October 24th.
This is, yeah,
It would be, I'm sorry, did you say November 24th?
November 24th.
November
Okay.
24th.
I mean, I say that we skip
I
the
mean,
next one then.
I guess we
That's fine.
pencil in November 24th, and then we're not I mean, there's always, right, we can always
Call one
add or
sooner.
adjust as needed.
I
If we need
think
to
it's-
call one in between.
It's,
Yeah, I-
unless there's things that come up, I think it's easier for the town, for the public to stay to the schedule that we had.
So no meeting on October 27th then?
Correct.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so for everybody at home, we will not have a meeting on October 27th. The next scheduled meeting would be November 24th. So we do have some dates to remember. Wednesday, November 4th is a half-day professional development for staff. Wednesday, November 11th is Veterans Day. All school offices and buildings will be closed. Monday, November 23rd will be the Cohort Green Day. And Tuesday, November 24th will be the Cohort Wave Day to go to school. Wednesday, November 25th will be a half-day. And Thursday and Friday, November 26th and 27th is Thanksgiving break, so all school offices and buildings would be closed. Does anybody have anything to add, or? No? Okay. So just want to shout out to Abington Cam and the students that participate, the principals and staff, as well as Marty and Lindsay that were attended tonight, and a big thank you to all watching at home. So at this time, I'd like to make a motion. I'd like to see if somebody would like to make a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
And all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Everybody have a great night.